Consistency in self-concept is something that anyone can struggle with. I think we see it in pop culture very often portrayed as what they call a midlife crisis. Self-concept is the beliefs that you have about yourself. It's essentially the answer to the question, who am I? Now, I think that although many people can struggle with this, and some people can go through times in their life in which they struggle with this more than others, and then they find their footing and they tend to move forward in a more secure way about themselves. But I think if you're a person with neurodiversity, that you struggle with this even more. I have ADHD, and I know that this is something I have struggled with a lot. And to be honest, it wasn't something I really thought about until this week. I was driving, I was just kind of thinking and letting my thoughts wander. And with ADHD, often thoughts wandering can be a dangerous thing, but it can also be where you find just the gems of thoughts that other people don't appreciate. It is often when I have the deepest realizations about myself, things that are so helpful that they can have the potential to change my life after I realize things. And I had one of these this week, and I thought it was very important to share this with people because it's something that I wish I had heard people talk about sooner, and I really haven't. I watch a lot of content on ADHD specifically because that's what I have, that's what I struggle with, but about neurodiversity in general as well, and I really don't listen to, or at least I don't find content that often about people speaking about self-concept and specifically consistency of self-concept. Self-concept is the beliefs that you have about yourself. It is the answer to that question of who am I? And some people know this from a very, very young age, right? They know from the age of 5 or 6 that they're going to be a doctor or they're going to be a dancer. And some people, this just seems to be completely ingrained into them. And if you have that, yeah, I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift to just have a solid understanding of who you are and what you want and how you can move forward. Because if you know what you want to do solidly, there's usually a path that you can follow to get there. And then there's a whole other group of people, one in which I am an active participant, who are just always trying to figure out what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Who am I? And I think that self-concept can be a struggle, but consistency in self-concept can be even more troubling. It is for me. And what I think happens when you have ADHD and other neurodiversity as well is that you often struggle with so much of life, so many little things in life like brushing your teeth, sending emails, having a routine. All of those things can take up so much mental energy and space in your life that you don't have the ability or the time or the mental energy to stand back and take a deeper look of the self, to take a bird's eye view of the self, right? Because you're so inside of the chaos of life, so inside of everything, having that anxiety of, am I going to get somewhere on time? Am I going to be able to pull this off? Am I going to be able to answer all my work emails this week, right? We get caught up in these little things, and then we don't take a deeper, broader view from a higher level, right? Because when you look at things from the ground level and you look at things from a bird's eye view, when you look at things from a high perspective, right, they can be completely different. You can see completely different things. And I think that's why it's important to step back and look at yourself. And one of the things I realized this week is that since I don't always have consistency, I think I'm also always worrying that other people are noticing this inconsistency, because as someone with ADHD, I feel like I can be a very competent person on some days. I can be extremely articulate. People can come to me and say, you're so productive, you're very talented, creative. They can say very nice things to me. And it's always very nice when I have those days and when I hear those things. And then I can have other days where I am a complete disaster and people are probably wondering how I got the job that I have, how I got anywhere in life, how I've done anything, right? I feel like there's days where I have no mental capacity for the things that I need to be doing that day, but you have to do things when you have to do them, right? And sometimes it's a simple thing like going to a doctor's office and they ask me questions and I just don't have the mental capacity to be answering those questions that day. And I can even feel people looking at me like, what is going on with this person? And I definitely struggle with having days where I am on it and I'm a very productive person and I'm like, I'm proud of who I am today. This is great. I can conquer the world. I can do anything. And then there's the other days where I can't do anything and just everything's falling apart and I'm late and my brain isn't working and I'm not thinking straight and I'm just all over the place. And so I realized that having these kind of like multiple versions of myself has been very troubling to me because it's hard to form a self-concept when you have days in which you are just substantially different as a person. And I think everyone has this to a degree. I just think if you have neurodiversity, if you have ADHD, I think you just struggle with this more. Like the distance between who you are on a bad day and who you are on a good day is just like vastly different for people who are neurodiverse than for people who aren't. Everyone has bad days, right? Everyone has good days, but that distance is completely different. And I think a lot of anxiety comes from me not knowing what version of me other people have in their mind. Is it the version of me that's on my best day, or is it the version of me that is just a complete disaster? Because they both exist and they're both me. And what I'm trying to learn these days is to just embrace whichever version of myself I am that day and to just try to set myself up to win, to know what it is that I'm good at, what it is that I'm bad at, and try to take jobs that help me play towards my strengths, how to live in a location that makes it easier for me. I try to just really understand what these strengths and weaknesses are and just allow myself to cater to them. As much as I'd want to go with the flow and do what makes the most money or do what's the trendiest or what's the most fun, as great as that would be, I have to do what's best for my strengths and my weaknesses. And I think that because I can be so different on different days, my self-concept is also very different at times. And sometimes I'm thinking, wow, I'm this amazingly competent person who can do anything. And then I have other days where I'm like, how am I employed? How am I existing? How do I have any decent friends in my life? How do I have anything that I have? It's astonishing because I have such a bad self-concept of myself because I'm going through that struggle where I'm just not 100%. And once I realized that I'm having this kind of push and pull relationship with my own self-concept of myself, and then I also realized, oh, I'm also not only worrying and struggling with my own self-concept of who I am and whether I'm this great person or whether I'm this completely incompetent person, I'm also struggling with wondering which version of myself other people have in their mind. And once I realized that, I got like a little wave of relief because there was at times anxiety that I was having in interactions with people, and I couldn't exactly pinpoint where that was coming from. But once I had this realization, I realized, oh, okay, this is part of where that anxiety was coming from. And this is partially why I want to encourage people, especially if you're neurodiverse. You have, in my opinion, no option but to do the work where you just really dig into yourself and try to understand yourself and try to understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Try to come to some sort of agreement and some sort of acceptance of a self-concept and understanding that you're going to be different on different days, and that's just the way it is, and it's okay. It's completely okay. And I think that if you are a neurodiverse, if you have ADHD like I do, if you struggle with these things, it's not necessarily a curse that's going to tank your life, right? It's not necessarily something that's going to hold you back forever. It certainly can be, and I think it does for many people, but it can also be the catalyst that allows you to think about yourself in a deep way that other people never even do, because they just don't have to. They can just kind of coast through life and get a job that they can perform at easily and that they're confident in, and they just go about life that way, and they don't really go into this deep exploration of the self and of your self-concept and understanding what it is that you're good at, what it is that you're bad at, where, if you have anxiety, where that anxiety is coming from. And I think that can be a great joy. The discovering of the self can be such an interesting pursuit, because there are so many levels and so many layers to the self and the psyche and the understanding of self and your concept of self. And it changes in different times in your life, in different ages, when you're in different eras, when you're dating someone, when you're married, when you're single. It changes. It's constantly changing. And I think that's one of the things that makes life really interesting, is looking at this, looking at the self, having a self-concept, examining your self-concept, thinking, well, what do other people see in me? Thinking about all these things and just dissecting them, and not ever making yourself feel bad for them, but figuring out how you can take this information and make your life better. Because the more understanding you have of yourself, the more pieces of the puzzle that you have, the clearer the picture starts to become. And that's why I want to, on this channel, encourage everyone to do this work, because this is the work that has fascinated me over the years. I don't have a degree in psychology. I don't have a degree in neurodiversity. None of that. My background is in the arts. But I've found the most interesting thing for me is just diving into these concepts, figuring out more things about myself, and then using that information to make my life better. Because I spent many years trying to put myself into some kind of box that I thought I should exist in, and that was extremely troubling. Like that, I don't wish that upon anyone. Don't put yourself in places that you weren't meant to be. It is a recipe for disaster. It's not a good life. You're not going to thrive. And why? For what cause? Just to be able to say that you did this, or say that you did that, or be like this person and be like that person. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. It is far more rewarding to figure out who it is that you are and what it is that benefits you, and to take that ball and run that down to the end zone, rather than trying to play some game that you don't even know the rules to, some game that's just not meant for you. It's a sport that's meant for other people, right? Figure out what it is that you should be doing. Figure out your self-concept. I am encouraging you to think about that and to examine your life, and examine if you've been struggling with self-concept at all, like I had been. And I think that it's something I'll probably struggle with forever. But the deep realization for me came in figuring out that, oh, this is impacting my interactions with other people, worrying what version of myself they are carrying in their mind. So it turned into not just a self-concept, but what concept other people have of me. I don't think there's a term for that. Maybe there is. If there is, please comment. I'd love to know. But I just want to continue to encourage you to do the self-work, to do the self-exploration, just to continue to make your life better. Not to do self-development to be rich, or to make money, to be beautiful on social media. I don't believe in any of those things. And I think that a lot of people who teach self-development, it's kind of pushed in that way, where it's kind of like self-development, but for the means of making money, for the means of being popular, for all of these different things. And I think self-development is worth so much more than that. And it's so much more rewarding to do it just for the sake of itself than for all of these other things. And that's why I just want to keep encouraging you to do the work and to be yourself, and to keep uncovering who that person is, and accepting that and taking joy in that, and setting yourself up for the most success in life and the happiest life. And that's all I wish for all of you. That's what I'm trying to do with my own life. That's what I'm trying to do with this channel. And that being said, I would love for you to subscribe so we can see each other again. Thank you for watching Psyched Up, where I give you the advice that I need to hear. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.